I guess I say that for people that are looking, going, you know what, my belt is overdue. Maybe it was a business success, it was a relationship, promotion, or financial, or whatever it is. Stay diligent during this season. Okay, stay diligent, stay after it, keep getting up, keep getting in there, keep getting on the mats, and you're gonna love what you get. And if you got a promotion, that you weren't prepared for, keep getting up, keep getting after it, stay consistent. Yes, we are back after being gone, and welcome to the Badass Dad Podcast with me, KDH. And across from me today in the Iron Yeti studios is Stephen DeSchryver. Stephen.
Kevin, how you doing, bud?
Welcome
well. Back to Colorado. It's so good to see you. You look tan. You look lovely.
Man, I tell you what, it has been quite an adventure, and I have missed being on the mic, and we're going to figure out how to be able to do it remotely. But I'm so appreciative for you of you and all that you've done. And it's been interesting as I've listened to some other podcasts and just the quality of some stuff. Man, you really do an amazing job.
Well, we appreciate that. The Iron Yeti Studios website is up and running.
Yes.
Without you in town, I had nothing to do.
So IronYetiStudios.com.
Yeah.
Love it. So if someone's interested in maybe doing some recording and stuff, they can...
Absolutely. Or if they just need advice and help, we're working with a couple of people down in Parker right now just to get... our whole goal in this whole organization isn't necessarily like the financial piece of it's fine, but it's more or less getting people started, getting their voice out, helping people just kind of understand that they do have a story to share and there's lessons to be learned. And I think we live in a world of Twitter and 150 characters. I truly believe that everybody has a story to offer, and this long form is the way to go. Yeah.
Well, it is. It has been such an adventure, over the last, 5 weeks. I think we've been in Texas, and the adjustment, and having a new freshman, aka a fish, down there, and how he is adjusting, and he's playing freshman football, and in his freshman class there are 1,200 students.
That's huge. That's the size of a 4A high school in Colorado.
Sorry, 1,300 students. He's got 150 freshmen trying out for football right now. They will have two teams, but I don't know how they pair. I mean, I'm sure they actually just put on pads yesterday for the first time, full pads. And so, once you do that, you lose, a good third of the kids anyway. So, but it's been a great adjustment. And the thing that I love the most is that they are practicing from 4:00 till 5:30 in the afternoon. So the fish are getting to experience all of it.
In that heat.
Yes.
I can't imagine. I mean, that's, you work on your resilience real quick, I suppose.
Yeah. And he's already got a nickname, which is good because his mullet is in full effect right now. And so, so he was on they added him to a little group chat, and it was like, oh, who's the new kid? Is that mullet? Is that the mullet? So
there are worse nicknames. That's fine.
Yeah. But he is doing great, and my little guy, playing football also, and it's just fun. I mean, there's few things as fun as seeing like little 10-year-olds playing football and still bobbleheads out there. But it's been a blast. It's quite a bit of an adjustment, but it has been fun. It is stretching us as a family, learning and growing. New house, new experiences. Never owned a pool before. I was telling you the story about a pool, and 3 days in, the pool turns green. We're like, holy crap, what do we do? And, get the pool guy out and fix it pretty quickly. But, we're going to use the backdrop of jiu-jitsu, because I text you, you asked me, what do we want to talk about? And so literally 2 days before we moved, I was awarded, my brown belt. And you talk about unbelievably humbling. And, my blue belt, I kind of saw it coming, but my purple didn't really, and definitely not this. And so, I don't think that's false humility. It's just going, man, I'm just not really sure. And so, I remember Professor Chris Jones, he had shared with me before. He said, some belts are overdue. People have been training, and it's time for them to move up belt. We talked about a couple of guys earlier, on that. And but then there's some belts that you grow into. And I definitely feel like this is going to be a belt that I have to grow into. I mean, there's no doubt this is several sizes too big, but it has been fun. And, I wanted to use that really as a backdrop about being a dad, business owner, even teaching, new careers and everything else, and understanding sometimes, you're put into positions and you may not feel like you're prepared for it, but hey, regardless, this is it. And this is where you are. And it's time to step up to the plate. So I know you wanted to ask me about some of the progressions through.
Yeah, just so, because I'm sure there's people out there who don't understand the progression of the belt system. And I'm brand new to it too. I mean, I know what a white belt is just because I think it's movies.
Right.
And I know what a black belt is because of movies, which is just, I don't know, disgusting at this point. But like, so what are the progressions that you go through the belt system? And like, just to give people perspective, I mean, I know in certain martial art practices, you can progress fairly quickly, but in jiu-jitsu, it is very much a long-term type of thing. So if you could kind of explain that. Yeah.
And to go from white belt to black belt, I've heard, commonly it's going to take 10 years. So that, this is not a 6-month turn and burn or, a 2-year journey. For the vast majority of people, you're talking about a decade. I know, even for, Devin, his was a 17-year journey, to get to his black belt. And, a lot of different factors on that. It could be a ton of different factors, but, the progression is you go from white belt to blue belt to purple to brown to black. And then we can talk about coral belt, but that's a whole nother animal, like the, spotted leopard out there that you don't get to see like ever. So, but really, that's the progression. And so usually, at white belt, I mean, you're just learning to survive. That's what a white belt is learning to do. I mean, we talked about you've been on and off the mats, for, I don't know, 6 months or so, but really starting to be more consistent.
About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks. Okay. So this is really the beginning of your journey now. So, and you're learning to survive, and that could be anything from, I'm not used to having, Kyle at 215 pounds crush my soul, or to some other man be able to hold me in position like I'm a baby and I can't even move. And okay, yeah.
One of the things that I learned, one of the things that they did a great job reading, everybody have been awesome, is be comfortable being uncomfortable. And having Kyle smush your face into the mat, and then you have to my very first reaction is to panic. Get him off my face.
Yep.
But you slow down your thought process. You slow down your breathing. Am I still breathing? Is anything really hurting? Is it really that bad? And if all of those, if you can answer yes to the breathing and then no, it's not that bad, you're fine. Yeah. you're really, it's right. Uncomfortable.
It is.
But you're okay.
Yep. And that's the white belt journey, and, once you become a blue belt, now you're actually learning, you've learned technique and you're learning really how to defend. Now, are you learning submissions? Yes, you're absolutely learning all those things, but it's difficult to put those pieces together. And I think really learning that self-defense part early on is, so critical. But once you learn how to, if someone sticks their cross hand in, palm up into your collar, you better understand that other hand is coming in and you're going to be out here in about 4 seconds if you don't defend, So and understand, how do you defend in a scenario like this? Someone takes your back and they're setting a seatbelt in. How do you protect yourself at that moment? I forgot how Reed calls it, which is the danger hand. I think that's what he calls it, which is the danger hand. So, two on one, two on the danger hand. So learning that really at the blue belt, I think, is incredibly important, and then, you're learning to be the hammer with some of the white belts there. Once you get to purple belt, you're pretty good at your defense, and now you're trying to develop what's your game going to be. What's it going to look like? Are you a guard player? Or are you going to be smash and pass? How are you going to play your game and developing your offense there? And as brown belt, you start to round it out a little bit more. And then, as I've been told, then at black belt, you basically just realize you don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, and the journey really begins.
I think that's a fair analogy. So just so that I understand this. So white, takes a while, a year or two to kind of get through. Blue, I've heard that blue's the toughest one to be in, just because it's easy, not easy to get there. It's easier to get there, and it's very difficult to progress out of there. So you see kind of what you were talking about earlier. You see lots of people who have been practicing in a blue belt for a long period of time, several years, and they're still just not progressing for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say this, I mean, I'm just thinking about what Justin told me and even what Chris told me is that the white belt is the hardest belt to get. Okay. Seriously, to walk through the doors and to be able to do that consistently, that is the hardest belt because, I think Justin said this like 10,000 times. He goes, if I had a nickel for every time someone said they were going to show up, I'd be a rich man, and, a lot of people will talk about they're going to show up, but it really is the toughest thing. And, you've got to get those first 6 months, those first couple weeks, definitely, but 6 months, you've got to give it 6 months consistently. I would say, at least, 2 to 3 days a week, 3 or more preferably, is going to help through there, but it's a consistency. I mean, it's no different than the nutritional plan, no different than, if you want to get better at your job, you got to be consistent. You got to be consistent with it. And, then the blue belt. And then what happens is, from a promotion standpoint, blue belt is, the blue belt blues, that's where the majority of people drop out. They get that first promotion and you're no longer just, a novice, you're moving into the colored belts and so many people drop out. And it's sad because this is the same thing I'll use a business analogy. Many times you'll hear, it takes you 5 years to, crack into the profits. And then why do so many businesses after 5 years just flatline or go out of business? They work so hard to get to that place where now they're starting to, churn a profit that they forget to do the things they were doing at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. We see that all the time, or, we also see it like the analogy of the mountaintop, right? And we use this with education a lot, but you spend all your time getting to the top of that mountain that you can see. So getting your blue belt, so to speak, or whatnot. And once you get to the top of the mountain, you want to celebrate and relax, but you realize there's so many more mountains to go that you just you lose a little bit of that fire in your belly, that little bit of extra motivation, the discipline to kind of carry on, even when things are tough. It kind of disappears a little bit unless you actively focus on maintaining it.
Yeah. And, the challenge is to be able to check your ego. And, we hear that all the time in jiu-jitsu, check your ego. But if you're here just to get a black belt, I mean, there would literally be like, I have this new infant child and my whole goal is just to get them out of the house. Well, yes, you want them to be a productive adult, but there's a lot of years and a lot of life in between there that you get to do. And so, yes, pursue your black belt, but understand that the journey is so much more important. And so, I was super fortunate that, I had enough guys pull me aside, and it's very common in jiu-jitsu for this conversation to come up. But, you never ask for a promotion. You never ask when's this going to happen or something like that. You just keep showing up and you keep doing the right things, having a good attitude. I know, being productive in the community and things like that, and really representing representing jiu-jitsu, representing your academy well is very important. But I think the lessons that go beyond that are huge, and how that applies, whether into the classroom, in the boardroom, across the way is so incredible. And I feel so fortunate, in some ways I feel like I'm starting over, moving away and, training in a new facility. But in another way, I feel like, man, it's kind of like when you go to graduate school, most people do their graduate work not the same place they did their undergraduate. So, it's a new campus, new environment, new professors, and, new culture and learning and growing. And it's a fun time. And what a great experience. And I'll tell you this, man, it was interesting because the first couple times I rolled at this new academy in Texas, one of the days, my son, Jacob, 14-year-old, he came with me, and I hadn't unpacked my gi yet, and I didn't have my belt, whatever. And so the head coach was doing some stuff, and he pointed out to me, and he goes, hey, you have blue belt, right? And I didn't really say anything. I was just like, oh yeah, And so afterward, Jacob came to me and said, hey, Dad, you just got your brown belt, And I said, well, I know. I said, I need to talk to him and everything else. I don't want to show up anybody or anything. So let's just let it be where it is right now. And then I took some time away from the mats to be able to talk to the head coach and kind of explain, what's happening, where I'm at in my journey. And it was great because he was very enthusiastic about, where I am and, maybe some value I could bring to the table as well.
That's fantastic. And I know that's difficult. So you wanted to talk about this whole idea of some belts are overdue and some belts you grow into. So you're walking into a couple of different stages in your life right now, and you kind of mentioned it, moving to Texas and all those things. When you texted me that topic, what's on your mind? Like, what are you thinking about?
Well, I mean, the easiest thing is just to use the jiu-jitsu analogy, but, I give you another area. It's been very interesting because I've been pretty active. I've coached my oldest, in football the last, 3-4 years. And so now he's in high school and I am behind, on the other side of the fence, behind the fence as JT Anderson, wrote his book about. And then Bentley, my little guy, I was thinking, maybe I'll get a chance to coach there. Well, they have a plenty full coaching staff there as well, and it's once again, finding my place, and just going, I want to add value, but I miss being on the field and, being on the mats and getting to coach, and, maybe it's just a different part of the journey for me. So, and it's interesting, we sold our business. So there's just so many areas right now that, it feels like it's overdue. If I'm walking into an environment, going, gosh, I know how to do this. I mean, even with my oldest, we do some training before practice and after practice. And I've started having some of the players come up and ask and say, okay, so how do you do that or that? And I'm like, hey, I'm not coaching you. And, but, if your coach says, okay, we'll work through some things. So
finding your place is difficult, especially in a new area. I mean, it's like moving to a new town when you're a teenager, right?
Yes.
You got to find out where you fit in the social hierarchy.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, in Colorado, we are so short of coaches and officials and all that. You've had to hear you say that they have a full coaching staff and all that. It's interesting. It's weird to hear because that's not our discussion on a daily basis.
Well, Bentley's fifth grade team, they have 6 coaches, for their little fifth grade team, I'm just like, I'm developing a relationship with the head coach, but I'm just like, I don't want to disrupt him and his flow. And actually they're new to town as well. But, at the same time, I feel like, there's some things I can add to the to the game, and we'll see where it goes.
And when you sent me that text, my mind immediately went to careers, because I think that's where the easy association to this is, and we've seen it all the time where, someone is in a career for a long period of time and they feel as though, well, I've put all my time in, I should get that promotion. I should get more responsibilities and things like that. And on the other side of it, I see this very often. And I'm blaming my generation, right? So that Gen X millennial crossover, we don't have a lot of patience. And it's for a couple of different reasons, but we get into a job and we're like, okay, what's the next promotion? What's the next, and how many points do I get? And how do I move on? And we move up the ladder as quickly as possible without ever taking a moment to step back and really take stock of what we learned. And unfortunately right now, and we see it with our current economic climate where there are so many job openings and so many positions available that people are getting promoted without the experience. So we've hit this weird thing in the past, 2 years where we ran into a lot of, 20, 30, 40-year-olds like waiting and saying, hey, I want to get promoted right now, to, oh my God, you're promoted and we got to keep bringing people in without the experience. So that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was in on an investor board meeting with a company that brought me on. I don't know what the word the kids use nowadays. I'll just say consulting. So they brought me on, to do some stuff, and I know the CEO. So I'm sitting in on this investor board meeting, and I'm listening to the dialogue, and so I know the CEO and I know the COO, but I don't know anybody else. I don't know any of the other players there. I don't know the investors, and so they're still in the fundraising part. They been in existence. They've raised over $10 million, blah, blah, doing all this other kind of stuff, and so I'm infused into this environment. And they did introduce me, and so I'm there. And so, after an hour and a half of this meeting, they kind of finally turn and go, hey, Kevin, so what do you think? And so I shared a couple bullet points, in which it was basically, I realized that there was a communication gap between, the vocal investors and, the C-suite with the company, and the miscommunication, on some things. So I was able to, point out a couple things like that. But after the meeting, we had the meeting after the meeting with, the CEO, yeah, he and I were talking, and I said, you know what, I can tell you right now where you really need me the most. And I said, you need me to coach you and to help you. Not when I say be prepared, not like it's not from the analytics side that he needed help being prepared. What he needed help being prepared with was emotionally.
Say more.
In this scenario, although I thought he handled himself on the surface very well, but I could tell some of the questions kind of got underneath his skin. And so, but he did a marvelous job of being able to step up and be a leader right there. But I realized also in that position, and I've realized this also over the last few years, that many of the conversations that I've had and how the whole Badass Dads podcast started was I realized that there are leaders in high positions that they through no fault of their own, they stop, having another voice or someone else to coach them. It's like, who's coaching the coach? And so I realized, with this guy, the CEO, I said, you need me in your corner, and here's what I can do for you. And here's where I can help you. I can help get you prepared for this. And I can actually, instead of you just, going through your presentation, I said, you need to do your presentation me first next time. And I'm going to give you all the objections, because every objection they came up with, I would have already known were going to come had I known what your presentation was. Okay. And so, that's just one of those areas that I don't have the position with them, okay, with this company, but my experience and all the breadth of what I've been able to do comes in there. So, it's kind of like, some belts are overdue. I mean, that would be an area where it's kind of like this is overdue. Like, I already know, like I can see the play developing much more than you do. So,
well, having an outside viewpoint always helps. We constantly bring in people from outside, whether it be academics, other, districts, things like that, just to give us a pair of fresh eyes, because it is very easy to get stuck in your own stuff, and you just believe everything that's coming out of your mouth with nobody there calling BS on it. And more so, like you said, to raise those objections and to see things ahead of time. So whereas I feel as though this is overdue for you, I feel as though for that young man or whoever he is, he has to grow into this position. He's got to grow quickly, because it doesn't seem like they're going to wait for him to just kind of grow.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so true. And I don't know, maybe this happens in education too, that most of, it's such a homogenous environment that, the constant feedback that they're getting, even from, higher ups, is more, academic. It's, clinical, as opposed to being, dude, you're not even in the classroom. How do you know how to handle this situation? I mean, I understand in theory, this is how you want me to teach this subject, but I'm also having to manage, these 32 students in class who are, one kid, his mom just tried to commit suicide, and this other kid, his dad just left the house, and this other kid, is concerned because his sister's on drugs, and I'm trying to teach them,
Algebra 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, so how do we digest that? So I understand, PhD from, over here, what you're telling me I need to be able to do in this scenario, but here's the real life scenario. Here's what's going on. And I think, what was so great, and I love that you talk about having an outside perspective, because, this company, I have no experience in the products and services that they offer. Okay. Now I have experience in some sales, in some marketing, finance, those things. So there's some expertise I can bring to the table there. But me coming in, not knowing their offense, it was a huge advantage because I'm not blinded by it. I'm able to I can literally just start asking questions and go, hey, what about this perspective? And, it kind of reminds me of the Albert Einstein quote, which is, a problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness at which it was created. And so, they're 3-4 years into their existence. And so, they've got a marketing issue, and they've had to make a pivot, COVID and everything else. They have to make a pivot onto how they're going to do distribution. And so for me coming as an outsider, I'm not blinded by the last 36 or 48 months of all the other BS they've been dealing with.
And the excuses.
Yeah.
We found that out a lot, like that, you'll walk into a different department or whatever, and they all have the same excuses, and everybody has just believed the excuses. And it's I don't want to make it like sound, make it medical and like make it sound sick, but it's a toxic kind of environment where people are constantly making excuses, and that's rough. And someone does need to come in from the outside to be like, no, or ask why.
Right.
Well, distribution or this is an issue. Why? Like, really, why is it an issue? And can you break it down into those fundamental pieces and say, oh, it's this one thing that's an easy fix? Yeah. I can't tell you how many meetings I sat in where it seemed like this overwhelming, huge problem when it really just was a quick fix.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this several times over, last, 100 episodes that we've done, but the importance of having a corner man, having someone beside you that can call you, on stuff. I mean, the corner man just sees things that you don't see. You may understand that there's a 1-2 coming at you, and that there's a jab and there's a cross coming. But if you don't understand the angle, or you're not seeing that you're dipping your shoulder or something, you don't notice those things. And so, but a coach comes in and is able to help you with those. And so instead of getting frustrated with the coach, you can begin to accept it. But I think one of the challenges for these guys that are in leadership positions, like I said, CEOs or principals, or, someone who's got experience in the classroom or on the field, they've been doing what they've been doing for so long, and many of them have carried most of the burden themselves. That's like, well, you don't really understand my situation. And that's an easy thing to say. And I get that. But if we want to get better, we're going to need to step back a little bit and go, okay, hey, who can see something I'm not seeing? And that's sometimes, what? Sometimes that's when your professor goes, hey, you're now a brown belt. And you're like, oh shit. Like, what am I going to do now? Like, I just learned to tie my belt, and now, and it's scary. And you feel like, first of all, like being at a new academy, there's enough, there's a big enough target on my back already. And now to have this brown belt around my waist is even more a target. But I go, man, it stretches you and it pushes you. And sometimes you get thrust into a leadership position. And sometimes you've been sitting back behind, a leader when you're like, man, can I just get him to move out of the way? Because I could do things so much more effectively. Being in the moment where you are and being ready to step up to the plate is so incredibly important. And, for me, I got to tell you, the thing that I wrestled with, with the brown belt, and I still wrestle with, is that imposter. Am I really this? Am I really that? Well, you know what? I can either deny that belt is in my closet with my gi right now, or I can own up to it and just get out there and just go, hey, this is who I am. Let's go. Let's get after it.
And that's when you learn, right? And that's when you get, there's a belief in system that we all have that we're not, like you said, the imposter syndrome, where I'm not ready for this. So if I just hide, I don't have to be accountable for it. But it's not until you actually put on your brown belt and you get on the mat, and you might lose some, or you might, but you're going to learn, and you're going to get better, and then you're going to continue to improve. We see this a lot. Talking about like the belts being long overdue, especially in the business world as well. We also see people who are wanting that next promotion, like I mentioned earlier, who say, I'm doing everything. I'm going to all the meetings. I'm doing my TPS reports just fine. I have all my clients. I don't understand what they're not seeing in me. I just don't get it. And our pushback on them has always been, what is the feedback that you're receiving? Is it, and then are you acting on that feedback? Because a lot of people will say, of course I'm acting on the feedback, but they don't know what they're talking about. Kind of like what you said earlier. They don't know what they're talking about. They're not in the classroom. They don't know what they're doing. I'm doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're not going to accept their feedback, you're not going to grow. You're not going to get promoted. Yeah. And then the other issue is, and this is a conversation we have with leaders all the time, is the fact that, what feedback are you providing? Because if you have people underneath you who should be being promoted, so to speak, and they're not, in maybe it's the feedback that you're giving them to make them better. Are they not acting on the feedback, or is the feedback poor? Yeah. Because for just as many people who don't accept the feedback, there are just as many examples of it's just bad feedback. Yeah. Yep. It is really bad feedback, and people who can't articulate what it is. There's one person that I worked with a long time ago, and it was a great analogy when I heard it the first time. And she, drew a circle on the board, and she made it like a pie. So like half of a pie and then a quarter. So it was like, 25%, and then 50% of the pie. And 25% was pedagogy. 25% was, how to teach and tactics and skills. And she shaded in the 50%. She's like, this is called it. And either you have it or you don't. And I don't know how to tell you what to do to get that, but sometimes you just don't have it. And at first I'm like, well, that makes sense. And I understood it. But now I'm like, that's horrible advice. If you can't articulate what you want me to do, that's bad. Yeah. That's really bad.
Yeah. Well, and I can 100% appreciate the feeling, because I've definitely felt this too about, a promotion being overdue. Okay. So I'm not going to speak this onto you, but I'm going to use you as an example. So to be able to go, man, hey, I've been doing this Iron Yeti Studios for, 3 years or whatever. And we've released well over 100 episodes and all this stuff. Why is Iron Yeti Studios not a household name now? When all of a sudden you hear some of these people who came out and they seem like they farted, and all of a sudden, they got 1 million followers, and it's so easy to get in that position to feel like it's overdue. I'm thinking about a couple of guys that I'm coaching right now, another CEO as well. And I'm going to tell you the text message that I sent to them, because they've been working on these big deals, for months, a couple of them like for years, and they're major, north of, $100 million. Okay. So it's a longer term, sales process and everything else, but they're so close. And so I text this one guy, and I text both of these guys, 2 different companies, 2 different scenarios. But I said, this actually comes from a great book, but I said, I use their names specifically. And so I'm going to use you here instead. So it was this: when riches begin to come, they come so quickly and in such abundance that Stephen wonders where they've been hiding during all those long, lean years.
I don't even know where to go with that.
And you know what it is? When you're out there, you're grinding and you're doing it and you're editing, video and audio, and you're like, is this ever going to happen to me? I've done all this pro bono work. I've done all this, I've continued to prospect, or, for Gretchen and I, it was years and years and years of hoping and praying and begging, to have kids, and, and not having kids, and, searching through adoption, and then, not happening for us. And just, it's easy to get caught up and go, man, this is overdue, man. We're good people. We should have won. We should have had this. We should have made millions. We should have, kids. We should have this kind of promotion, this kind of business, this kind of family, it's so easy to get caught up in those things, when our responsibility is to show up just that day and just get better and do the job that day. And know that as you continue to sow good seeds, you will reap a harvest if you don't give up.
Mm-hmm. And you have to keep going.
You do.
And you have to keep grinding. I mean, I know you brought Iron Yeti into this, and that's a whole other issue. Like, it's not a bad issue at all. Like, because we have, different things going on and whatnot, but people do tend to give up when they don't see, like, just, when they're an inch short of their finish line. Because it's hard. It is really difficult, especially when you are not seeing the rewards, and you just keep grinding every single day, and it's, I'll use me as an example. It's like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 1 a.m. And I'm getting up at 4 a.m. to go lift. And you just keep getting it done, because you have to believe somewhere deep in your soul that what you're doing is for the right reason and for the right purpose. And I think as long as you have that in your mind and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you will keep, it should not be, I don't want to say it's not difficult, but it should not be difficult, because you're grinding for your purpose,
Yeah. And, the challenge is that many of us, myself included, okay, so I'm not, standing up here on high looking down at all my peasant, dads or whatever, but, we really do have a lottery mentality, and meaning that, wait, I've done this and I should just get the results I should have right now. Why am I not a blue belt? Why am I not a black belt? I've been showing up, and then all of a sudden, expecting, to be further along, or to go, you know what? And this is another challenge. I'm thinking of a couple guys even that I roll with today going, you know what? I may wear a brown belt, but at 54 being a brown belt is a little different than me rolling with Dylan, who's 28, who's a blue belt. I mean, way more athletic than I am, everything else, there is a difference. And so for him, it could be very frustrating or whatever to be where he is. I don't ever feel that from him at all. So don't misunderstand me. But I could see how someone would feel that way, and just saying, listen, it's your journey. It's your time. And I'll tell you this, and I can speak most definitely from becoming a parent. I mean, today actually is the 9-year anniversary of my little guy's Bentley. His gotcha day. So it was 9 years ago today that we got Bentley, and he was a little 18-month-old baby when we first got him, and Gretchen and I had hoped and prayed and begged and all sorts of different stuff, and done all the fertility and everything else, to have kids. And she sends me a picture, shortly before I walked in here, and she goes, "This was all worth it." And it was Bentley with 4 or 5 of his new buddies in our swimming pool in Texas, hanging out and doing it. And she goes, "This is what it's been all about." But if you had asked me that, before we got Jacob, we'd been married 14 years, no kids. And there were so many times we're like, what the hell is wrong with us? How come this girl who's 15 years old, who doesn't give a rat's ass, she gets pregnant, and she gets a promotion, she got her blue belt, and yet here I am. We've been diligent, consistent, everything else. I'm still wearing a white belt. I don't understand. Why does she get to be a parent? I don't get to be a parent, or I feel better equipped. I've taken care of my finances. I've taken care of my marriage. I've taken care of, my relationships and everything else. And she hasn't done it. And she got to have a baby and I didn't, God, what's going on? And those were the emotions that we felt for sure. And I will tell you, when it happens a little bit later, it feels like it lasts longer too. Like it feels like the blessing is so much more. Like I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to, they go, 4 more years and they're out of the house. 3 more years and they're out of the house. You know what? I don't feel that. We adopted Jacob when he was 4 years old. I loved that season. I loved it. I loved when he got to middle school and I got to coach him in football and everything else. I loved that season that we had to get. I mean, I absolutely adored it. When we started, what we started back in January and getting up early and working out and lifting and spending time together and just having communication and being super intentional and being able to go, if it is true that by the age of 18, I'll spend 80% of the total time I'll ever spend with him, I'm going to max out those freaking last 4 years. And if that's true, I love this season. Absolutely love it. And what I get to do with Bentley as well. I mean, it's amazing. And there's just, I'll tell you, for those people that have fertility issue, there are other routes, but it is such a blessing. Like I look back now and I go, I'm a hell of a lot better parent now than I would have been at 24, 34, that's for sure. But whenever it happens is when it happens. And I'm just incredibly grateful. And I just, I guess I say that for people that are looking, going, you know what, my belt is overdue. Maybe it was a business success. It was a relationship, promotion or financial or whatever it is, stay diligent during this season. Okay. Stay diligent, stay after it, keep getting up, keep getting in there, keep getting on the mats. And you're going to love what you get. And if you got a promotion, that you weren't prepared for, keep getting up, keep getting after it, stay consistent.
Find a mentor. That's deep, Kevin. And I know you want to probably wrap this up, but I do have one more thing like that. Yeah. I just recently got engaged with, because I do think it's important to remain focused on your goals. Right. What is the result that you want? What is the outcome that you want? And you have to keep that in the back of your mind and keep grinding. And you also have to have faith. We talked about faith a lot in a lot of different contexts, and you talk about it on your podcast all the time. But having faith that what you're doing will work out is incredibly huge. I saw a video by Eric Thomas. You know Eric Thomas?
Yeah, love him. He's awesome.
He's amazing. He's a Michigan State guy. Did I mention that?
Yeah, come on now, Big Green.
Exactly, go Green. So Eric Thomas gave he was a preacher for a while down in Atlanta.
Okay.
And he gave a sermon one time because a lot of things were going on in the community, and it was difficult to see, and it's very easy to just give up. It's really easy to lose your faith in God. And he brought up the Karate Kid. Have you seen this one?
Mm-mm.
So he talks about the Karate Kid and talks about Mr. Miyagi, and you guys have all seen the Karate Kid, I'm assuming. But in the Karate Kid,
spoiler alert.
What's his outcome? He wants to learn karate, right? That's his outcome.
Yep.
So what does he do? He goes to Mr. Miyagi, and Mr. Miyagi says, "Well, paint the fence."
Paint the fence.
I don't want to paint the fence. I want to learn karate. right? And so he paints the fence up and down, whatever. I don't want to. And then he's like, well, you got to wax the car. And then paint the house and all of these things. And the entire time he has faith. Daniel LaRusso keeps the faith that he is going to learn karate eventually. He just has to go through this process, and the process sucks and he doesn't want to do it. And it's painful and it hurts. And it's difficult to see the end. And it's really easy to give up at any given time. But in the end, Mr. Miyagi says, show me, paint the fence. And he learned karate, not the way he had intended to,
right?
Not the way he wanted to. God doesn't give us the opportunity. God doesn't necessarily present us with the opportunity to learn the way we want to learn, but we are learning the lessons. And as long as we keep our faith and keep focused on our outcome, I think we're going to be just fine.
Man, wise words right there. Wise words. Well, anything else, Stephen? You good?
I'm good.
When do you guys go back to school?
Monday.
Oh my gosh.
We got 2 days.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm kind of excited. I need to get back. And we have a year and a half of lost opportunities with students. We did it. I think our district did a much better job than the rest. But we need kids back. No masks. Let's go.
Yeah. I love it. Well, hey guys, wherever you are in the spectrum, I mean, if you are, if you feel like you got a promotion and you didn't feel like you earned it or whatever, or, it's just one you got to grow into. It's a battlefield promotion. You got to get after it right now. Someone chose to promote you. They believed enough in you. Maybe they saw something in you you don't even see in yourself. Man, why not take the courage, the strength that they have, and the belief that they have in you and go get after it. If you feel like it's overdue, stay consistent. Keep getting after it. Keep getting up early. Do things that other people aren't willing to do, and you will get to have things that other people won't ever have. And so appreciate you guys. We're going to do a better job getting back on a more consistent basis, working out the details from a distance. But thank you. Be a badass dad. Have a badass day. And we are out. Hey guys, I wanted to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We are so excited about what's going on in 2021, and we want to encourage you to connect with us. So you can hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram at BadAssDads _podcast is where you'll find us on Instagram. And if you want to hit me directly, it is KDH at BadAssDads.org. KDH at BadAssDads.org. Man, appreciate you guys. Let's get after it.